I'm sitting in my car in a parking lot, engine off, hands still resting on the steering wheel. I stayed there for almost 10 minutes, just watching people walk past my windshield. Everyone looked like they knew exactly where they were going. I didn't. I had just come from a doctor's appointment, nothing serious, no bad news. But sitting there, a strange realization hit me. No one was waiting for me anywhere. No one I needed to call, no place I had to be. And instead of feeling free, I felt unnecessary.
My name is Daniel. I'm 56 years old. And for the first time in my life, I realized that the role I had been playing for decades had quietly ended. And no one told me what came next. For most of my adult life, I was needed. At work, people relied on me to fix things when they broke. At home, my family depended on me to be steady, predictable, present. I was a husband. I was a father. I was the person who handled things. And then, slowly, those roles disappeared. My son grew up and moved across the country. We still talk, but he doesn't need me the way he once did. My marriage didn't end with shouting or drama, just a calm agreement that we had become better strangers than partners. At work, I was replaced by younger people with newer skills and more energy. Nothing ended all at once, and that's what makes it so disorienting. One day you wake up and realize that no one is really asking anything of you anymore. I used to think being needed was the same thing as being important. But when the phone stopped ringing, I started wondering who I was without all of that. A few months after the divorce, I started taking morning walks, same route, same time. Not for exercise, really, just to give the day some kind of structure. That's how I met Harold. He sat on the same bench every morning, feeding birds small pieces of bread from a paper bag. We nodded at each other for weeks before we ever spoke. One morning, he asked if I had any spare change. I said I didn't. He shrugged and asked if I wanted to sit anyway. So I did. Harold talked. Mostly about small things, the weather, a baseball team he used to love, a sister he hadn't seen in years. He never asked what I did for a living or why I was walking alone every morning. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel the need to explain myself. We sat there like that most mornings, sometimes talking, sometimes in silence. And then one day, he wasn't there anymore. I never found out what happened to him. What surprised me was how much I missed him. Not because we were close friends, but because in those quiet mornings, I mattered to someone simply by being there. Around that same time, my son called and asked if I could help him move apartments. I almost said no. He had friends. He didn't really need me. But I went anyway. I spent the weekend carrying boxes, holding doors open, assembling cheap furniture with missing screws. At one point, he looked at me and said, "I'm glad you're here." It was such a simple sentence. He probably doesn't even remember saying it. But it stayed with me. I think we misunderstand what usefulness really looks like. We imagine it has to be impressive, productive, efficient. We think being needed means being indispensable. But most of the time, it's much quieter than that. It's being an extra set of hands when someone feels overwhelmed. It's listening without trying to fix everything. It's showing up even when you feel optional. I started volunteering once a week at a small community repair shop that fixes donated bicycles. Nothing official, no titles. I tighten bolts. I pump tires. I show kids how to adjust a seat so it doesn't wobble. No one there knows my resume. No one cares who I used to be. They just know that when something is loose, I can make it steady again. And that's when it finally clicked. Being needed isn't about being irreplaceable. It's about being present in moments where something or someone is a little less stable than it should be. You don't age out of usefulness. You just age out of certain roles. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake the end of a role for the end of your value. These days, when I find myself sitting in my car with nowhere specific to go, I don't panic the way I used to. I remind myself that usefulness doesn't always come with an appointment. Sometimes it arrives quietly, disguised as a small opportunity to help, to listen, or to stay a little longer than you planned. If you're at a point in your life where you feel unnecessary, I want you to hear this.
The world doesn't need you to be everything. It just needs you to be available. That's enough, more than enough.